Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex, and today I'm going to be looking at Sicarian Ruststalkers. How this sort of review will work is that I'm going to look at the unit itself, I'm going to look at the profiles that it does have for the unit, I'll look at the various weapon loadouts they've got, and I'm going to look at the special rules they have as well. After that, I'll have a look at the sort of strengths and weaknesses of the units and the best way to sort of play them, along with recommended forge world rules and stratagems for them as well. So yeah, let's have a look at the profile for Sicarian Ruststalkers. So Sicarian Ruststalkers have a movement of 8, which is great, a good bit of mobility to them to get them up the field quite effectively. Weapon skill of 3, which is very good, because they are predominantly a melee focused unit. Ballistic skill of 3, which isn't going to matter because they don't really have any any ranged capabilities to speak of. They have strength of 4, which is handy, nice to have an average strength because that's their primary sort of use as melee. Toughness 3 does make them quite squishy, so not ideal, but certainly it's there. Wounds 2 apiece, so they can take multi-wound stuff will be a pain for them. But certainly having extra wounds gives them a bit more survivability. 3 attacks apiece, so they do have loads of attacks to throw out opponents. Leadership 6, which is a bit dangerous. They are vulnerable to morale and a save of 4+, which is perfectly average as well. The Princeps, which is basically leader for the unit, has an extra attack, giving them 4 attacks apiece, and a leadership of 7, so it means they're a bit more survivable in the morale phase. They have 3 sort of weapon options, Cord Claw, Transonic Bleeds and Transonic Racers. They come with Transonic Racers and a Cord Claw, and you can replace them to get Transonic Bleeds instead. So we'll begin with the Transonic Razor. The Transonic Razor is a melee weapon, is strength user, so strength 4, 0 AP and 1 damage. Each time you make a wound roll of 6 with this weapon, the target suffers a mortal wound instead of the normal damage. So certainly with the amount of attacks you're getting, you are going to reliably get hopefully a couple of mortal wounds. With no AP, that can be quite dangerous. Cord Claw next is basically the same, where it has melee range, strength user, AP 0, but it does D3 damage, so it's a bit more dangerous on multi-wounds models. Again, a Cord Claw can be used to make 1 attack each time this model fights, so you only get 1 chance with it per model. Each time you make a wound roll of 6+ with this weapon, the target suffers D3 mortal wounds instead of normal damage. So against multi-wounds units, this can be quite dangerous. Now you can replace both them for Transonic Blades, which are very similar to Transonic Racers. They're melee, they're +1 strength, so it does make them strength 5. AP 0 and 1 damage each time you make a wound roll of 6+. With this weapon, the target suffers a mortal wound instead of a normal damage. So the exact same really as Transonic Razor, and pretty much similar to the Cord Claw as well. They have, for their abilities, they have Canticles of the Messiah. Again, standard for AdMech, so that you've got to make sure everything in your detachment has this rule, so you can actually get benefits from it. If you have a single unit that doesn't have this in your detachment, you can't use Canticles. And they also have Bionics, so they all have a 6 up interval as well to add to their survivability. So I'm going to look at them in a bit more detail of what I think of them, and also their weapon loadouts as well. This is a unit I'm really kind of struggling with, which is a shame because I actually own quite a few of them. They're a combat unit first and foremost, and they're looking to target with mortal wounds when they roll a 6+ when they're rolling to wound. This puts them sort of head to head with other units, mainly Fulgurite Electro Priests. However, they do not get the benefit from, they do have a benefit of having an extra attack, they are faster when moving, and they can benefit from cover as well, which the Fulgurite Electro Priests do not. However, they're not as strong without Blades. They're only strength 4, where Blades would make them 5, which is the same as the Fulgurite Electro Priests. And however, their main weakness, in my mind anyway, is that none of their weapons actually have an AP, while Fulgurite Electro Priests have 2 on their AP. Also, these guys do have multiple wounds as well. So unless you cause all mortal wounds in the world, these guys' attacks are relatively easy to save against. Certainly against horde units, they actually might be quite handy, though the Fulgurite Electro Priests do have their field as well, which can cause additional damage on top. So yeah, we'll begin with our sort of default loadout, which is Transonic Racers and Cord Claws. This has 2 weapons where at least one of them must be made with the Cord Claw and the rest with the Razor. Well, you can choose, but generally you'll go with the Cord Claw with one of your attacks. Unless you're fighting things with single wounds, then it doesn't really matter, because I believe their rules are essentially the same, and the multi-wounds would be sort of wasted. The Transonic Razor is a very basic weapon, no bonus to strength, AP or damage. The exception is obviously the 6+ on the wound causes a mortal wound, and more wounds are always, very helpful. However, the problem with the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex, there's only a few ways to actually advance your wound rolls. I think there's only one way you can actually get it to re-roll, so that's a bit of a problem there. Loads of ways to improve your hits, but not so much your ways to pull off wounds. Along with the very basic stat lines and ultimately no AP, means that other than mortal wounds they'll struggle to do the damage against things with like power armor, etc. The Cord Claw is similar, except it does only one attack and does D3 damage, and on 6+ it becomes D3 mortal wounds. Hand against multi-wound targets, but no improvement for single wound models themselves. At least they all have one, so you might get lucky against like a Terminator unit and you might drag away a Terminator or 2. Transonic Bleeds, the other option for Ruststalkers, is pretty simple. The difference is a couple of points. They are higher in points, I believe, and they add +1 to your +1 to your strength at the cost of essentially the Cord Claw. Essentially this means that none of your mortal wounds are going to be more dangerous, because you'll still be activating them on a 6, which ain't great by any means. It doesn't make them any more scarier. It means against multi-wound stuff the Cord Claw might be better, but if you are targeting things like Space Marines, you're going to have like a much higher chance to wound them, but then you're not going to benefit from your there's no benefit of AP either. So it's kind of like, you have a higher chance to wound, but you're not going to advance your mortal wounds, so maybe the Cord Claw is better just so you can get that more reliable multi-damage option. Forge World Dogma recommendations. The Mars Forge World rule, I always begin with this one, is recommended so you can have a chance of getting 2 canticles at a time. You're aiming for predominantly Shroud Slam, because they do benefit from it, giving them a 3+ save, which is really handy, basically giving them cover unless your opponent ignores it. And Chant of Remorseless Fist for reroll 1s in combat, which is obviously very handy. They have loads of attacks, you want to make sure as many of them connect as possible. Riser, red in the Cog and Claw, is very good for these guys, as rerolling 1s to wounds may result in a 6, which will mean mortal wounds, especially on Cord Claw. That may be really handy. And Stag's 8, as usual, is recommended here. -1 tip for these guys, as they're not very durable. -1 to hit them is very handy, and they don't really have, without stratagems, infiltration rules. So you want to make sure they get into combat as least damaged as possible. So Stag's 8 is really handy for that as well, because you do have the mobility to suddenly move up the field, potential 14 inches in your first turn if you get a good advance roll. Stag's 8, stratagems I'd recommend. Conqueror Doctrine Imperative is pretty good for these guys. Essentially it adds +1 to their hit roll, meaning they hit in 2s, which is handy, and if you have Chant from Remorseless Fist, you're going to reroll those 1s and get loads of hits in, hopefully. However, there is other units that do benefit from this stratagem probably more. Looking at Infiltrators with Taser Gouds, or because then their multi-hits become more threatening, or Dragoons are really good with this stratagem. But certainly if you've got a high number of Ruststalkers in combat, being able to get them more reliably to hit and hopefully to reroll as well, just to make sure your hits do connect, is pretty nice. Again, acquisition at any cost is also a stratagem I would recommend here. For instance, you draw a card, you want to get an objective. These guys have the mobility to run up and take that objective, and then hopefully sit on it. If they're in cover or if they have Shroud Slam, it'll boost their save to 2+, and it will bring their attacks to, I think, 4 attacks apiece, with 5 on the Princeps. So you have loads of attacks and a much higher survivability rate. So acquisition at any cost is pretty good on that side as well. Though I think it might be a bit steep, as I think it's 2 command points to activate. Could be wrong in that one, but it's still worth having if you're playing a game where objectives are heavy. These guys have the ability to get there. So that's kind of it for Ruststalkers. Pretty simple. I'm struggling to see them in their use compared to other units that do a similar role. Fulgari Electro Priests do really well on sort of going after high priced targets because they have a higher AP and they can cause mortal wounds as well. And Infiltrators with Taser Gouds are really going to cause a lot of multiple hits to really deal with your hordes. So I'm struggling with Ruststalkers a wee bit, which is a darn shame. Please let me know what your thoughts on them. Have you had any epic moments where they have worked, or maybe something I'm missing? Let me and other viewers know what you think, because certainly we're all here to learn strategies on the best use for our units. So thanks again, guys. Please check us out on social media. We do put up projects and everything on there when we're working on them, and we also put up community posts and general humour ones as well. So thanks again, and we'll see you on another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.